Welcome, Ourlings, to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. Today, this episode, we have Ian Marks. He is Sober Retake on Instagram. And I've known Ian for a number of years now. We've done a live together on his side. Really, really interesting guy. And interestingly enough, our sober date is within 6 days of each other. So mine's the 19th, his is the 25th of August 2020. So, it was really interesting to get Ian in and, on the Zoom to have a chat and see how many similarities or differences, there was between our kind of drinking history. And it makes for a really interesting conversation. We talk about his childhood, which was quite idyllic, which is similar to mine, because my drinking, as far as I know, wasn't stemmed from any trauma in the past, as was Ian's. It just kind of ramped up through our 20s and 30s, because at the end of the day, it is an addictive drug. So, I don't think you necessarily have to have a predisposition or a traumatic event to make you become, dependent on alcohol and for it to have a negative impact on your life. So, that's, I know a lot of people do tend to kind of start drinking or taking drugs because of some instance that's happened in their life of trauma. But the fact that you might be, in a situation where you've enjoyed drinking and then, you've enjoyed it more and more and more, and then it becomes a habit, and after the habit, it then can become, an addiction. Nobody sets out and plans to do this. It just can happen very, very easily, as can be seen from Ian's story. So, I hope people that are maybe sober curious, because I think, Ian's drinking did become quite problematic at the end, but I would say for the most part he was, a bit of not a grey area drinker. I think Ian was somewhere in between that grey area drinking and the, waking up in the morning and downing your life with a bottle of vodka. So he's somewhere in between of that. So that's, there's so many different levels of problematic drinking. Please listen for the similarities in your kind of life and drinking habits, and not the differences. So here comes Ian. Ian, welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle, mate. How are you? It's been a while.
It has been a while. Yeah, thank you for having me on, mate. It's a pleasure to be here, Jimmy. We've been connected on Instagram for forever. I think you're about a month in front of me since the beginning.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I think I looked today and we started following each other, I think about 2021. But I think what your recovery date, your sobriety date, is it the 21st or 22nd of August?
Well, it's the 25th of August, so you're not far off. It was pretty good.
Yeah, so I'm the 19th, mate. So there's literally like 6 days in it. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to this conversation to compare
exactly
how we've gone on.
Where you started, and so let's get into that. So tell us, where are you in the world at the moment?
Well, I live right bang smack in the centre. If you put a pin in the middle of England, you could probably put it on my house. It couldn't be any more central, right in the middle of Northamptonshire.
Right, okay.
So I live bang in the middle.
And have you always grown up? Did you grow up there?
Yeah. I've moved around within a sort of 10, 15 mile radius of where I grew up. So I'm still in the same place. You've got family here and everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. It's okay, mate. Yeah.
So how was your kind of childhood, and when did you have your first tipple drink?
Wow, that's a good one. Right, my childhood was quite different to some people, which you may have on. I lived in a really small village, like tiny village, and we only had about 30 people in our whole school.
Wow.
It was
Okay.
really small, it was tiny. And we all grew up playing football and at the park, no phones, meeting after school, that sort of thing. But then, because you desperately wanted to be an adult, as we all did when we were teenagers, you want to be grown up, you move from the football pitch to the working men's club,
Yeah.
because that's where we go play cards, play pool or whatever. And to start off with, it was okay because I used to just drink Coke and go there. And my friends, my friend, my nan and granddad were the steward of the club, so we could go in, no problem, play pool. But of course, as I got to about 14, 15, I discovered this thing called alcohol.
Mm.
And from being this shy boy, I turned into this person who got this. It really was like spinach to Popeye. You know what I mean? To me, it was like this Dutch courage that I'd been lacking, just because of lack of social skills, really, Jimmy. I think,
Mhm.
because it's such a small area and there wasn't a lot going on. And yeah, so I mean, answer to your question is about, I would say my first alcoholic, not taste, but first alcoholic drink would
Mhm.
be about 14, really.
Yeah. And was that in the club or was that with mates or?
Well, it started off in the club, but
Yeah.
then it was with mates, and I was quite lucky and lucky really because my mum and dad had split up, and my dad was out quite a lot. He's worked hard. He was out a lot,
Mhm.
so I'd got quite an open house. And my dad's attitude was at the time, listen, don't go mad. And while
Mhm.
you're in here, I know where you are.
Yeah.
That sort of attitude, which is I sort of agree with to an extent, but of course it never got policed.
Yeah.
That was a problem. We never came in and went mental because there were beer cans everywhere or because we tidied up or stuff.
Yeah.
And
So it was kind of
yeah,
like I'm gonna give you this like leeway to because I want you to be safe and you're not out in the park and getting into trouble with
yeah,
the police, but also he wasn't monitoring how much you guys were actually drinking. I'm sure
yeah.
you weren't like, being sick all over the place, but
No, no, not
you
at
were
all.
probably having a few too many cans at that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I can remember my first actual drunk experience because it sounds very posh, but it wasn't. We had like a pantry next door
Oh,
and it was just like another room and it
yeah.
had a load of wine bottles in it, which were homemade wine.
Yeah.
And I heard a cork blow out one of them. I didn't even know they were in there
Huh?
because me and my friend decided we were going to drink one of these bottles of wine.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And you can imagine if it's strong enough to blow the cork out of the bottle, then it's pretty. And I found out
Yeah.
afterwards it's about 20 years old. This wine. It was bloody awful. The worst thing you've ever drank. Honestly, it was like. But we both drank this wine and walked down the high street, and my friend sat on the floor and he couldn't get up.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow,
And what were
what
you,
the hell is this?
15, 16 at this
Yeah,
point?
yeah,
Yeah.
15, 16. Yeah, yeah. So that was
Yeah.
like a really cool find. You know what I mean? So we drank all of it,
Yeah.
probably
I mean,
about
that's
20
the thing.
bottles.
It's kind of, I remember we were always, I suppose we must have been about 14, 15, and sometimes it was easier just to camp in like one of our mates or my parents' back garden. Do you know what I mean? And then they
Yeah,
were in the house, but we would sneak in and we'd get their vodka and we would be drinking that because we'd already got a taste for it at this point, and we thought,
yeah,
well, why if we hang about in the streets, then we all have to go home at night and to our our respective
mm,
houses and all that. But if we camp, then and I was like, right, we'll get this vodka. And then it was that old chestnut of, filling it up with water. And I mean,
yeah.
they must have known because they'd be having friends around and it'd be like, what do you want, a vodka tonic? And then they'd be going and be like, why are you watering down your vodka? Do you know
This
what I mean?
vodka's awful.
This vodka's
I had
terrible.
18 of them and it's like no effect.
No effect
But
at all. I can
yeah,
drive home, yeah, after
I
your.
mean, we had the dartboard on the wall we had like an end room in this house. It's quite a long, thin house.
Yeah,
And it's a room which we didn't use. So we had a pool table and a dartboard. So all my mates used to come around with an old sofa, which my dad got from somewhere, or
yeah,
it relegated from when we replaced the other one, the old one.
yeah,
And they used to just come round and we used to just play pool and darts. And we had one of them old Calagas fires, in
yeah.
the corner. And that's when all the computer stuff was around, the spectrums and all this.
Well,
So
it sounds like a kind of idyllic kind of childhood growing up. And what? So,
yeah,
so how old are you, Ian? Are you about my age?
I'm 52.
You're 52, so you're a wee bit
Yeah.
older than me. But that was like kind of 80s, 90s, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was
Um,
really was. bullseye
Yeah,
on
and
the
as
telly,
you
you know.
say, we didn't have much entertainment other than, the ZX Spectrums and Commodores and all that.
Yeah.
And it was just playing out on your bike until, the street lights came on. But then obviously we started getting into the kind of, so did you, I mean, how was school for you? Did that all kind of work out or?
School worked out okay. It was
Yeah,
okay, and that's about all it was really. I mean, the drinking wise, uh, when I was about 14, 15, hadn't reached the point where it affected school.
right.
So it wasn't really too bad. But we went to school quite a way. As we got older, the schools got further away. So we had a bus to school, a bus back.
Hmm.
So that was okay, really. I made some good friends at school.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was because all of a sudden I was in a school of 900, where
Of
I'd been in
course,
a
yeah,
school
from
of
30
30.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like, wow, where do these people come from? It was
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was really good actually, school. That really opened my eyes and made, mixed with some more people who've got similar interests. It was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then so did you go on to further education or go into work? What?
Yes, I did an engineering apprenticeship when I left
Right.
school.
Cool. Cool.
So it's typical day release sort of thing, which you had in the 80s.
Yeah.
Everybody would serve an apprenticeship day release. And I did a 5-year engineering apprenticeship, which is
Nice.
mechanical engineering. It was cool. Yeah, I enjoyed that. That's where I sort of came into my own, really. I didn't perform very well at school because
Mhm.
was very distracted or just not interested.
It's
But
hard to know
when,
what you want to do when you're at
yeah,
school. That was the
that's
problem
right.
with me. I
And
was
then,
like, I don't know.
yeah, when we went to engineering college, it was great. But then that towards the end, the alcohol started
Yeah.
chipping away because we'd all got cars or somebody would drive
Yeah.
because we're coming up to like 1920. So I had a Cortina or whatever cars we had.
Nice.
And of course, we go to the pub at lunchtime and things like that. Of course, some of them were drinking 4 pints in an hour.
Mm, mm.
And, 4 pints is 4 pints, especially in an hour.
And then still driving later
Then,
on.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not doing nothing to be proud of, but it had already started creeping because it was affordable as well. Wasn't too expensive.
Yeah, it wasn't £5 or £6, £7 a pint, was it?
No,
Do you know what I
no,
mean?
that's right.
Yeah, I'm not, and I know you're not condoning it, and drink driving is not
Oh, no, no.
obviously anything to condone, but it was, and as I say, you're a little bit older than me. It was what people did. Do you know what I mean? I don't think
I
they might have cracked down a bit more during the '90s, and then obviously the
absolutely.
noughties and
I
subsequent.
think what happened was the grey area went. It
Mm,
went from being, you'd be all right with a couple of drinks to being,
yeah,
no, if you're 1.65 over the limit or whatever it is,
yeah.
then you're in a mess. So these are units. This is how many units roughly is over the limit, and so it got very more regimented. And you knew that when the police stopped you now, they're not very often they caution people,
Hmm.
really.
Hmm.
But in the old days, you knew the copper, and he knew my dad.
Yeah,
And I mean, I got stopped on my motorbike once for being a bit of an idiot. Only a moped whizzing about. And he just told me to piss off home. He said, "Go on, get home.
yeah,
If
yeah.
I see
Sleep
you
it
out
off,
again,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah, just
get
sort of.
lost. What's wrong with you? But
Well,
that's
and somebody told me, an old geezer told me, way back when he was driving, and he said we'd come home from the pub and we'd be half cut and all that. And it obviously he wasn't proud of it, but he said there wasn't as many cars on the road. Do you know what I mean?
no,
And even going back to the 80s, I don't think all the coppers had breathalyzer kits,
no. Walk
like
down the line,
walk
see
down
if
the
you were
line,
drunk.
touch your nose and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. Because there wasn't probably I mean, there was the accidents, of course there was, and a lot of them were probably caused by people drink driving, but it's when they started realizing, holy shit,
yeah,
we're actually seeing a lot of this now, so we need to do
that's right.
something about it. And obviously, it is a good thing. I mean, I think Scotland has, I don't know what the limit is in England now, but I think it's like a unit, is it? You're allowed?
I don't know if I'm honest,
No.
but
I mean,
it's
I mean, I've done it in the past, but in Scotland, it's a zero tolerance now. So, like, you
yeah.
not even like if
Which
you blow anything in the thing, that's you
which I
done.
suppose really, I mean, it's all right for me to say that and you to say that because we
Yeah,
don't drink anymore.
yeah,
But that's how it should be. But you're right about the traffic. I mean, in my time in driving, it's gone from being 5 cars up the street to now being 3 cars on every drive.
yeah, yeah. Because they got the
You know,
parents, two cars, family,
yeah,
kids is now
and the
gone.
kid, yeah,
There's cars
that's right.
everywhere. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
he doesn't have a car, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, going back to the zero tolerance thing. It's like if someone um does blow. in it, and they've got alcohol in the system. The problem with me was when I would have one and I would say I'm going to go out for one. When would it ever be one? You
Yeah,
know?
that's the trouble. That's why I had to stop going out for one
Yeah.
because as you say, you get there and you straight away you'd be thinking, how am I going to get home? Can someone come and pick me up? You start trying to map your evening around alcohol
Well,
straight away.
just the fact that if I said I was going out for one, it would I'd go, and I'm not blaming any of the people that I was out with because I was as bad as I'm my own worst enemy, and I'd be like, right, well, I'll have a second one, and then that'll be it.
Yeah,
And then before I know it, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know.
yeah.
So let's get into that. So when did your drinking really? Was it okay through your 20s and 30s, or was
Well, no,
it
not
creeping
really.
up?
I mean, because like a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, when you start establishing yourself, you might get married or you
Yeah,
might get a mortgage in your early 20s because houses are a lot cheaper. Lots of people in their 20s had mortgages when at my age
yeah,
because you could
yeah.
buy a house for 35,000 where now it's
God, it's
silly o'clock.
ridiculous. Yeah.
So luckily enough, that restricted my alcohol intake because I never had that disposable income.
Hmm.
Where people say, "Oh, I
Hmm.
spend £100 a week on wine." I never used to, but I still used to drink a lot. But other things used to give up. I'd make sure. So
Hmm.
I'd buy the beers and just make sure I've got them. But it was constantly having beers,
Yeah,
watching the
it's a
telly,
habit.
having a
Yeah.
beer, watching this, doing that, cutting the grass in the back garden a Sunday afternoon. Got
Mm.
to have a 4 pack of beer or a big box of those bottles of beers. You remember them? You used to get given them by
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people, blondies, whatever they were called.
The little
But
little little
yeah,
breaders
little
and all
stud
that.
bottles. Yeah, yeah. But they'd always be there. And of course, my children, um, the birthday parties in the garden. Then it
Hmm.
was quite a thing, barbecues. And when I think back, I was always pissed. But
Mm.
not hammered, but always like in the
All
end, we
boozy.
we did have a rule with our neighbours that when it was the kids' birthday parties, that we wouldn't start drinking till they'd gone to bed because it's their party, not ours.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that did sort of slow things up a bit. But yeah, I constantly, if I went out for anything, I'd always come for a bottle of wine.
yeah, yeah,
No matter what I went out for, I'd go out for some kitchen roll and come back with a bottle of wine.
yeah. Just so you had it in there. And tell
Yeah.
me, did you ever have, were you one that would have, like I know you're saying you had beer and wine in the house,
Mm.
but would it just be bought for that specific?
Yeah.
Would you have like a stock of it? Because
No.
I never had wine. Like I know
No.
I've got friends that have got, they got a red, they got a white, they got a rosé, and they got beers, and they got for all
Yeah.
circumstances. I'm like, no, it doesn't stay in my house. It just gets
No.
drunk. You know?
No. I only had enough for that night
Yeah, yeah.
because if I bought, as things got a little bit easier, it went from 1 bottle of wine to 2 bottles of wine.
Hmm. Hmm.
And of course, I wouldn't buy three because that would be suicide. So I'd
Yeah.
only buy the two. But yeah. So that's a question. I'd only have to buy what we've got. When people say to me now, like one of my friends said to me the other day, I went around his house. He said, "Do you think you can have a word with my wife? Because I think she's got a little bit of a drink problem." I said, "Well, not really." I said, "She's got to want someone to talk to her. You can't just pin her in the
That's
truth chair."
ambusher, yeah.
And yeah, but I looked on his wine rack and he'd got a wine rack full of wine
Hmm.
and some bottles of alcohol, which were like old ones with dust on them, and the spirits in the cupboard. And I said, "I don't think anybody's an alcoholic in your family, because believe me, Sunshine, if I'd have been in the house when
Yeah,
I was drinking, they'd be gone.
they'd
I
be
wouldn't be
gone.
going down the shop buying them. I'd
No,
drink all them before I bought the next one."
yeah, yeah. Or you'd have your own supply, but you'd be going, oh well, should we just crack open one of these tonight? So it
Yeah,
doesn't look like where have they all gone? Do you know what I mean? It'd be like,
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, no, good call on that.
yeah.
It's yeah, it's a horrible thing. And I was going to say, so when did it start getting? So sorry, did you get married quite early then?
I got married. I've been married twice. I got
Right. Okay.
married when I was 24, 5,
Hmm. Hmm.
and no, 23 actually. That's what I remembered now. 23, a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so that was okay. But my father-in-law at the time, a lovely guy. I'm not putting him down at all, but he used to drink wine and he used to keep wine in a cellar
Yeah.
and he used to like wine. And I thought I was being very grown up and sort of wanted to be like him
Yeah. Well,
because
yeah, it's sophisticated, isn't it?
and sophisticated. I thought it was
Yeah.
great, so I'd go to Threshers at the time. Remember
Uh-huh.
them?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I'd buy bottles of wine and take one round, and I felt like I was part of the gang,
Mm.
not realizing that it was always there. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It was
yeah,
always there. If I wasn't thinking about drinking,
yeah.
then I was drinking.
It
It's either
was,
one or the other.
yeah, I know what you're saying. You were always making some kind of map in your head of how I can get to have a
Yeah,
drink. Yeah.
that's
So
right. Yeah,
what are
you
we
know,
going to do? Are we going to go for a meal or are we stay in? Oh, if it's a Friday night, well, we'll just get, Chinese, but oh, wouldn't it be good with a bottle of wine? And
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Or I'd even go
yeah,
out for meals
yeah,
just so I could have a drink. I'll say
yeah,
to my
yeah,
wife, "Oh, do you fancy going to have something to eat tonight?" She, "Oh, that'd be really nice. That would." Of course, I'd
yeah,
go out and sink 4 pints straight away.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's the
and
thing. Like I was saying on a few podcasts ago when I was living in Hull with my ex and she had kids. So we'd go to like maybe if we went through to York for the day or something like that, and
yeah,
we'd to a museum or something. When it got to lunchtime, for me, it would always have to be a pub, And
yeah,
looking back, it's just taking kids into a pub is just not it's not cool. It's showing the wrong behaviors and things like that. I mean, I know it's got a
yeah,
time and place, and a lot of pubs are very kid friendly, but I still just think it's normalizing it from an early age, and I'm not sure
yeah.
that's the
I mean,
best
they've
way.
they've adapted, haven't they? Because rather than it being even, you remember Jimmy going back to Sunday hours,
Mm,
it was
mm.
like I can't remember 12 till half two or something, but they were rigid. If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
found
yeah,
a pub that was open in the afternoon, and you remember when they used to cover the alcohol in the shops, used to
yeah.
pull blinds over them to stop people buying them after 3 o'clock.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. See, all these things are gone,
yeah,
but in order to get people in the pubs, they've made them as child friendly as possible,
yeah.
which
They've
is
got
I
the
get
kiddies
it,
play
but it's
park and the beer garden and all
yeah,
of that, so that the parents can just sit and get trolleyed all day, and the
yeah,
kids are not getting bored because that's the
that's
point.
right.
They're
Yeah,
not doing
keep
it
them there as
because
long
they
as
want the
possible.
kids. They're not trying to encourage the kids to come in. They're basically trying to encourage the parents to come in and that
Yeah,
they don't bother them. That's what it is.
yeah. I mean, I've done it. I've took
Yeah,
my kids to a play barn. Off you go then.
yeah. Yeah.
I've got 2 hours now. 2 hours
We'll
of
get as
that.
many pints down as possible. And
Yeah,
that thing
that's
about
right.
shops being open, I mean, being able to go in. Some shops, I think it's 10 o'clock, but a lot of them now, you can buy booze at 8 o'clock in the
Yeah,
morning if
whatever
you
you
want
want. Yeah.
to. Yeah.
All the garages sell drink now, don't they? All the
Yeah.
garages around here sell alcohol
Well, when I was in
24/7.
Hull, it was the 24-hour garage, and I think I'd been up there in my dressing gown at some points. And but I used to go when I wasn't actually working, but I would be leaving the house pretending that I was working for certain points, and then I would go and sit in my car. But I go into the shop, and I called it my Holy Trinity. So I would go to like
Yeah,
Spar, the petrol station, and then there was a Waitrose. So I didn't go to the same one every day. They didn't give a
yeah.
shit who I was. Do you know what I mean? They didn't recognize
No,
me. But I'd always go if I was buying like a bottle of vodka or something, and I'd be up at the counter, and there wasn't even a look from them because they probably saw it every day. But I would always say, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's someone's birthday at work today," and it was like I'm
of
making
course it
it
is,
for
mate.
myself because I'm embarrassed. I'm feeling the shame. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy, but and then I'd just be off, and they'd know. They'd be like, "Yeah, whatever, mate. You drink away if you want to.
Yeah,
That's
just
us."
which is, I get it. They see it a lot, don't they? See loads of
Yeah,
people. Yeah, so that's my 20s really and
yeah,
30s went
yeah.
to that. Then I got divorced with, with lots of people separated, got divorced,
And was it?
and
I mean, apart from obviously having the wine everywhere, nothing had really kind of flagged up with you or your ex-partner saying,
no, not really like
not
that.
on
It
that
was
front.
just regular drinking.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't to blackout. But
yeah.
when I got divorced, I lived with my brother for 3 years.
Hmm.
He kindly said, "Look, I've got an empty house." He lived on his own. He said,
Yeah.
"Don't rent somewhere. Just come and live with me." And so I went from being a married man to being
Hmm.
living in my brother's house. And my brother's got a good job. He's never had any children, and so money wasn't a problem. All of a sudden,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
got a massive disposable income. It was like I didn't pay any rent because he wouldn't charge me any rent.
Hmm.
So because he bought his house, and I just pay a bit towards the bills, and that was it. So all of a sudden, I could go and buy whatever I want, and that's when it really ramped up. It went to down the pub every night. You
Yeah,
know, 8 o'clock, half 8, we were going down the pub every night.
yeah. Yeah. Because I felt
And
like, I suppose if you got married at 23, in your mind, you maybe felt that you'd missed out on a bit of your 20s.
yeah,
And,
maybe,
you know,
but yeah, and and I did sort of re not rebel. I did want to come out more, like you say. I've married young,
hmm
and I was in a very tight marriage.
hmm
We, I'm not, we've not been disrespectful to my ex-wife, but she's very sort of dominant, powerful
hmm
woman. And all of a sudden, it's like being someone letting you out of a trap. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, I can do what I want now.
Yeah.
And I
You've
went
no
to
one to tell
Magaluf
me.
and I went to all these places.
You've no one to tell you what time you're coming in from,
No,
from the pub or anything. And you
no,
know
that's right.
what? I was listening to some, I don't know if you know Bell and Sebastian, but one of their songs, I think it's The Boy from the Arab Strap, was the song, the theme tune from, do you remember that program, Teachers?
I know the program. I don't remember the theme tune. I remember
So,
it being on.
but that program, I think it was like maybe late 90s, early noughties. So I don't know if we're talking about the same
Yeah,
year, but that was me when I was about maybe 20, 21. And the whole is a great program. I've not watched it for years, but it was like there were these teachers, and literally every morning they were coming in hungover. They'd gone home. There was two lads that were teachers. One was a PE teacher, and they both lived in this house together. And every night they'd get home from school and they were just getting on it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And then they'd go back in hungover. But that was the culture that we lived in, that late
yeah,
90s thing where, and I'm sure you like living with brother was like, yeah, do you know
yeah,
what? We'll go to work, but let's go and get pissed tonight. And
yeah. We'll go down the
we'll
pub and think of it. I mean, to be honest, my brother used to go down the pub with me every night, but he never had a drink problem. Because he
yeah,
could just go, no, actually, I'm not going to bother, or "Oh, I'll only have one, and he would, because I
yeah,
couldn't do that. And it's funny
yeah.
being when you're out with your brother, because you think, well, you pretty much
You got the
made the
same time.
same,
Yeah.
so what's the difference? And it wasn't till, I listened to an interview with Stephen Fry, and he was saying about wine. If he drinks two bottles of wine, and his friend drinks two bottles of wine, they have completely different effect. One could be quite
Yeah.
sleepy and silly, and one could be quite aggressive. And
Yeah.
it's the same with when people are prescribed drugs. It takes a while to get it right, doesn't it? So it just goes to show
hmm
you really are two people can be completely different, And it was quite interesting, really. But even now he can go out and just have one and not bother, or
See,
I
my
found some
brother's a
bit.
bit like that. He's never really been into spirits or anything, and I lived with him for a bit. He lives over here, and
Hmm,
I think friends of his had bought him bottles of whiskey, bottles of vodka for Christmas presents and all that. So
yeah,
he had this whole cabinet. He liked beer, but he would have a certain amount of beer a night, and then that was it. I'd get up for work,
yeah,
fine, but he'd go off to bed, and I'd be like maybe on a little nip of whiskey here and
yeah,
there, and but as you say, I never had that like switch off button. It was
no,
always until I we'd either pass out or black out. And I remember when I lived in Cambridge, I used to go to the co-op. So this would be like every night. And I was in my 20s and I'd come home and I'd go into the co-op and I could get three bottles of wine for a tenner. And I was
yeah,
like, great. And then I had housemates, but they all kind of were room dwellers. So I would just be in my room. And I knew that if I had the three bottles of wine, and I know this is a horrendous amount of alcohol to be drinking, but I'd be fine the next day. I'd built my tolerance up.
yeah,
Three bottles was fine for me. But if I ever decided to just go, I'll have that extra one bottle. I'll maybe have four tonight. Oh, I was
yeah,
rotten the next day and I couldn't do
yeah,
anything. But three was fine, and I was still getting up and going to work, and I must have been about 27. Anyway, this isn't
yeah.
about me, Ian.
No,
Back to your story, mate.
yeah, no. I mean, that's what happened there. I was living with my brother. We used to go down the pub a lot, and then I got into a new relationship, and I was drinking at home because
hmm
all of a sudden, pop, pop, two kids. So I've got
Right. So you
I'm at
didn't have
home
any
then.
kids with
I had two kids before, so now I've got four children,
the four child, right?
right?
Okay, okay,
And so I'm back at home, and I love my kids, and they were great,
yeah,
but they were a pleasant surprise.
right, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
of
and
course,
al-
yeah.
and well, the first one was, and so all of a sudden I felt like I was put back in
Back in the
the
game.
stocks. You know what I mean? I thought, oh my
Oh,
God.
right, right, yeah, I see.
And I sort of wasn't a very nice person, really. But I
Uh,
wasn't ever abusive or nothing like that. So before people start writing into your podcast, it wasn't like that. But
no,
like
but I think
from
you,
being in the relationship where I was quite overpowered, all of a sudden I didn't want to be in that sort of relationship.
Yeah.
So I was very headstrong. That's how I'd
Yeah.
like to put it.
Right,
You
right. I
know,
see.
and
I
it
guess you
didn't.
did. You felt a bit resentful that this might happen again. As you said there, you felt like you were
Yes,
stopped and you
yeah,
didn't want to
that's
do that
right.
again.
So so the drinking carried on.
Mm.
I mean, I had lots of very some of my things I think about if I ever not like it happens now, but if you ever think, oh, do you know what? I perhaps could drink again. It was one of the moments I was looking in the garage for a half bottle of whiskey once because I knew I'd got one in there and I was about an hour looking for it. Do you know what I mean? It was like,
Wow.
what's going on?
When was
It's
this?
just crazy. Hmm?
When was this that you were looking
Oh,
for
that
that?
was when I was saying my second relationship.
Oh,
It
okay.
was
Sorry, not
yeah,
recently. Not
yeah. No,
recently.
no, not recently. No, and yeah, so that unfortunately ran its course. I've just became what's the word I'm looking for? I was out of control really.
Yeah, you're
And
really.
that's not I'm not
What
trying to
do
be
you
clever
think?
by saying that. I'm embarrassed to say it. But I
Yeah.
mean I was like I'd go out and I'd say I'm gonna be back in a bit, I'm going out with my mate. You go, all right, okay. And I'd come back 2 days later.
Wow.
Things like that, which is just not acceptable behaviour.
No, no. And how old were you here now? Probably mid
I
30s,
was in the mid to late 30s.
mid to late 30s. And yeah,
Yeah.
as you say, you're a dad. You're living with your wife. You got kids. It's really not acceptable at all. I guess
No,
you were
not at all.
thinking,
No.
I
And
need escapism. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And so that came to an end
Mhm.
amicably. She said, "Look, I just can't live with you. You're just off the scale."
And was drinking
And
ever kind of raised as a reason or
not by her, but I knew that's what it was.
you knew that was what it
I
was?
knew that's what it was. I'd go to a festival and come back, you know, 2 days later, absolutely hanging. You know what I mean? Like proper
Yeah.
half dead.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when I got met Wendy, my wife now, it was something I didn't want it to be how it was. So it
Hmm.
started off, I was still drinking, but I tried to contain it, try to keep the lid on it,
Yeah.
try not to be that person I was before. And in the end, I mean, after a couple of years, we got to the point where actually said to her, I'm done with this drinking. I'm done with it because I just can't carry on
Hmm.
how it is. And it wasn't a really rock bottom either, Jimmy, because I want people to understand this
Hmm.
is that you don't have to hit a rock bottom. There's, people's stories are amazing. I listen to people's stories where they have hit a rock bottom, and I find such inspiration from their journey when you
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah.
But it's also just the same if you haven't hit rock bottom,
Yeah.
but you just want to change your life. If it affects you in any way, and it was affecting my life.
Yeah.
So on
And
that day,
I think from sorry to interrupt, but I think with and this is why I want to do the podcast because I think there's an absolute abundance of grey area drinkers out there. I think there's
absolutely,
an
yeah,
ever increasing amount, even since COVID. People are cracking, if they're working from home, they're cracking open that bottle of wine earlier and earlier. And for me, I mean, I was a hopeless case. I had hit rock bottom, and then there was a floor below that, and a floor below that, and a floor below that. And I know that some people that have heard my story are like, oh my God, I'm nothing like that. And that's fair enough. They're not, but they may end up getting to that point. They might not, but
exactly,
do you know what I mean? As far as I've done the research and heard from people, if you've got an alcohol problem, it only gets worse. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
it's better to kind of nip it in bud earlier.
Somebody described it to me as an elevator that only goes down.
Yeah.
So you might have an alcohol problem and get off that elevator.
Yeah.
I'm using somebody else's words now, but get off the elevator at level 70.
Hmm.
You think that's
Hmm.
not too bad because
Yeah.
it goes down to zero. Right? And you might have a year off alcohol. If you think I'm going to drink now, you don't
Mhm.
get back on at zero again. You get
No.
back on at 70 and go down a bit further. It
Yeah.
it only goes down.
Only goes
So
down.
the
Exactly.
quicker you can stay off it, the
Yeah.
better. Because you have to. I know people who have stopped drinking for 2 or 3 years, then gone back on it and been worse than they were before they even
Yeah.
started.
Well, also that's what killed Amy Winehouse. I've not got the
Yes.
exact medical term, but because
No.
she went so quickly back to where she was drinking before, but her body wasn't ready for that. Her body just went and shut down, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. So a lot of
Yeah.
people
I mean,
it was drugs and this and that. It was just pure alcohol poisoning that killed her.
yeah, that's right. I mean, she's very slender, wasn't she? And to
Yeah,
suddenly have that amount of alcohol in your
yeah,
body, you
yeah,
you know. You
I
haven't got
mean,
a chance, have you?
it's also funny. Like I couldn't even imagine because I mean I was drinking a bottle of vodka a day at the end, and it was
Mm.
like if I was to, well, we're both like what 4.5 years nearly now, or over 4.5 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if I was to go, do you know what? Even if I had a shandy now, I'd probably be talking cod shit. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because it would have that effect on me. I'm not saying I ever want to go there and do that, or even to test the
No,
waters, but yeah, because the tolerance goes, but the the kind of mental obsession is always going to be there. I know that if I had a drink tomorrow or tonight, I'd be in a mess by
yeah,
Wednesday next week.
absolutely.
So
I went
yeah.
to a pub about a year ago. It was about a year ago, this particular pub,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd had 2 bottles of Heineken Zero,
Oh
and
yeah.
then it was my round. I said, right, I'll get them, da 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 da, and a Heineken Zero, yeah. So she took the top of the Heineken, stood it there, 2 beers. I picked it up. The label was facing the other way, and put it in my mouth, took one sip, and it was like somebody had just set a load of streamers off. It
Oh
was
my
just like,
God.
here we go. I turned it round and it was normal Heineken. And I said, listen, I didn't explode. I said, not everybody who drinks alcohol-free drinks is because they're driving.
Yeah.
I said, I know it was a mistake. I said, but I mean, I don't count that because it was
No, no,
just,
no, no, no.
you know what
But
I
they,
mean? But I'd
they,
rather
they,
be honest and tell people it's going to happen, especially more than ever, because when you go into a pub now, more often than not, they've got it on draft,
yeah. So how are you
which
going to
means
tell?
you don't even know. It could be a busy pub on a Friday night. So yeah, 8 drinks, 10 drinks, and alcohol-free beer. That's your one, Ian.
Yeah.
Is it? Are
Yeah.
you sure it's my one?
Yeah. I mean,
You
I'm
know,
I'm
that's
I'm always checking if I'm having a Guinness. There's always it seems to be in cans where I've gone.
yes,
And I'm always double checking the can because I'm like yeah, and the bar staff I know they're not to blame because they're busy and this that and the other, but they
they
need to.
are. Yeah,
I've heard a lot of people who have had situations like that, and one
yeah.
was I think she was either having a glass of wine or it might even been an alcohol-free vodka and tonic. The second she drank it, she knew exactly that this
I
was a
knew
so
immediately.
yeah.
Immediately, I could. It was. It's when I describe it, it sounds silly, but
Oh no,
it was
no,
almost.
I get exactly what you mean.
It was like a homecoming. It wasn't like. It was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I could. Oh, and anyway,
He's back,
uh,
and it's
yeah,
like,
he's
no, no,
back,
no,
and
yeah,
I sort of went, whoa, snatched. Looked at it. I thought, oh Christ, and I only had one very small sip, but you
yeah,
could just tell straight away when they say they are. There's hardly any difference between the two. There is a difference.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You just
yeah.
forgotten what the other one tastes like.
Definitely
And
forgotten.
so they just got me another drink, and I carried on, and that was the end of that. But
Mm.
yeah, so there you go. That it was good in a way because it reminded me or reassured me that if I ever thought about just having one,
Yeah,
it would be the road to disaster.
absolutely. Well, a lot of people have said, and I'm in agreement. Um, they say I've got what is it? They say I've got probably some more relapses in me, but I don't have another recovery in me. And I
Yeah,
completely agree with that,
yeah,
with my personal way.
yeah,
I went through absolutely hell to get sober. It was relapse after relapse. And then when I finally did it, it was like I'd broken through something. I'd managed to just kind of like almost like in a tunnel where you're digging like a
yeah.
mole and and then I'm putting all that behind me, and then suddenly there's like light and I've broken through the earth and I've put all that behind me and I don't want to go back down there again,
No, I
you know.
mean, you think when
So
we're saying it's 4.5 years
yeah,
since we stopped drinking, well, you think now you'd have to be nearly 2029, wouldn't it, and a half, if you started again to get where you are now.
oh Jesus, that's scary. Yeah,
No, I use that as an example to somebody. If you're thinking about giving up,
yeah,
just start from zero now to where you are. Like for
yeah,
you, you'll be nearly 2030 in August.
yeah,
Or,
yeah. It'll be yeah, um, yeah.
it's
So
5 years.
2030. So that would be me turning 50, and I was 40 when I turned sober. So
Yeah,
to go back to zero now would just be, and then, you know what? I don't have these. I am done with it. You know what I mean? I'm not.
yeah.
I'm not constantly
Absolutely.
going to meetings anymore and going, oh my God, I was having cravings today. I'm literally done with all that stuff. I know never say never and all that, but you know
Yeah, yeah,
what? My life
I
is
know what you
such a
mean though.
better
Yeah,
place. Yeah. I can
yeah,
walk down the booze aisle. I've bought booze for friends. I like it's not this thing where if I touch a booze bottle, my hand's going to disintegrate. It's going to burst into flames. I'm kind of done with all that now. I just
yeah.
know that I'm never going to drink again because I
No, I
don't.
mean that's right. Yeah, I mean I'm lucky really, or unlucky, but it works for me that my wife, she's not a drinker, but she
Hmm.
still drinks the occasional glass of wine.
Yeah,
She can take
yeah,
it or leave it. She'll have a glass of wine, then screw the lid back on and have a cup of tea. Then you
yeah.
know what I
That's
mean? It's like that's
the same with Jen, my
you know,
fiance. She's
and
exactly the same.
but we've got gin, we've got wine, we've got mulled wine, we've got all sorts, cider, all these things in the house. Some of that will go back from like last Christmas she got given,
Yeah.
and it just made me laugh because she got given a bottle of gin, quite a nice bottle of gin,
Uh-huh.
and it lasted her a year. Well, I mean, it would have been a 2 weekender, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
probably even a 1 weekender,
Yeah,
and then I'd have had to be sort of apologising to her. Well, why can't you just leave it alone? It's not even
yeah.
yours, and just feel awful. And it's nice
No,
to
but
have that
it's
clarity
like
of thought now.
you just kind of I mean, I remember when I moved in with my ex over in Hull and she had this big full liter bottle of gin up above the cooker and she wasn't a big drinker either. She liked a glass of wine with me and all that, but I was the bigger drinker. But there was this bottle of gin and well, I don't think I was even living there then. It was just when I'd go and stay, and we'd be having wine, and I'd be like, "Oh," so I would just keep having little slugs out of this bottle,
Yeah,
and then it was eventually gone. And I don't think she even noticed that it would kind of emptied out. And I think I made excuses or whatever, but it's a shady thing to do because at the end of the day, you're you're being dishonest. Do you know what I mean? You're not
it's
telling
shady.
what
That's right. Yeah,
it
that's a
is
good
shady.
description.
I mean,
Yeah, I'd go in.
I've got in the fridge there, and it's been since my barbecue last year. And it's one of the little cans of, Gordon's gin. I think it's a pink gin.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah, I know. Yeah,
alcoholic one. And it was
yeah,
Jen brought it round and she never drank it. And it's just been sat in my fridge there. And it's not like every time I open fridge, it's kind of going, please drink me. I just ignore it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like
yeah,
having a carton of milk well, I drink the milk. I don't drink the gin.
yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. We've got when you'll buy some little bottles of wine. Funny enough,
Yeah.
it took me a long time because it was something we did, like drinking wine.
Hmm.
And then I found out later Wendy was only having a glass to stop me drinking the whole bottle, which
Right.
I quite felt a bit uncomfortable about that after the
Yeah.
event. Because
Yeah.
if I drink a glass, you won't kill yourself. But yeah, but she'll buy these little bottles and put them in the fridge. But for a long time, I couldn't buy a full size bottle of wine. I just couldn't do it. It was because
Uh-huh.
it's something we used to do, and
Yeah.
it was just a
Yeah.
mental hurdle. It wasn't, and when I say a long time, I was on about in the first year of sobriety.
Yeah.
It was just like, you know what? I just don't feel comfortable picking it up, and
No,
I'm
and
not
that's
going to.
and as I say, for my first year, I mean, it's I can walk down the booze aisle now, but for my first year, I stayed away from everywhere. I was almost like a hermit. I
Mm.
went to like 3 meetings a week. So what? How? So when you decided that you were going to get sober, what kind of did you just stop, or were there any kind of
Well, I
things in
did.
place that you did?
I tried a couple of times to do the usual things where, right, I'm not going to drink in the week. Of
Yeah.
course, in that really means Wednesday night,
Yeah.
and sometimes, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to try to have an alcoholic drink and then a non-alcoholic drink at home. So you're mixing it up,
Yeah.
and it was just crap, Jimmy. I got no willpower at all,
Yeah.
and it was just going from worse to worse, and I was feeling a failure, to be honest.
Mm.
Not only was I drinking, I was now drinking, and I knew I couldn't stop
Mm.
because I've proved it to myself that I'd got no willpower. And there's two people who changed things for me, and that was Sober Dave
Hmm.
and Andy Ramage.
Yeah. Both legends.
They're both legends because I'd only thought that sober people were celebrities. People like Brad, oh, I'm sober. Yeah, of course you are. But you've got an entourage of all these personal trainers and people there to help, counselor on standby, so it didn't happen to normal people.
Yeah.
And then Sober Dave came along, and he's a cracking guy. And I'm not saying he's a not normal person, but he's a normal guy.
He is, yeah, yeah,
He's a normal guy. You can speak to him like a normal guy. And I
yeah.
thought the only way I can describe it is I found a connection to him. I just
Yeah,
thought, you're doing what I want to do. You're
yeah.
actually doing it. You're not just talking about it. You're doing it.
He's
So I watched it.
normalized. He's
Yeah,
normalized sobriety rather than the other
yeah,
way around, normalized
that's
drinking.
right. And I just thought this is a guy who was really popular. He's more popular now. He's not drinking, funnily enough. But at the
Yeah,
time, he was a popular in the pub. Lads, like man's man, have a laugh. Come on, Dave, have a drink. And
yeah,
he's on, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And I thought, this guy's great. So I went to one of his meetings about 9 months in. It was
yes.
in the Jago down um, in London.
But I
And
think
the Rock So
he was only like a year or two. He's only like a year or two ahead of us, so
that's right. Yeah,
he was
it's
still
about
early
18
days
months. Yeah,
himself. Yeah,
he
yeah.
was. Yeah. And we went there and the Rock Sober boys were there
Oh yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And they're great,
yeah,
proper brilliant. I mean, I'm sure he can tell you loads of stories. But I thought these guys are great and
yeah,
they don't drink.
yeah.
What's
They're
going on?
enjoying themselves and they're not
Yeah,
drinking. Yeah.
that's right. I mean, he made me laugh because he said he went for a curry with the Rock Sober boys,
Hmm.
and the food was a little bit late coming out. And the guy came up and said, they're all covered in tattoos, like Dave is covered in
Yeah,
tattoos.
yeah, yeah.
And they came, mate, and the guy put 4 pints of lager on the table and said, there you go, mate, you can have them on us. And all three of them just went, we don't drink, mate.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
was
and
just
there
like,
the guy. You can just imagine the guy puzzling, going,
yeah, just thinking,
but you've
what?
got tattoo sleeves.
You look,
What do
yeah,
you mean you
tattoo
don't
sleeve, the
drink?
bikers, you look
Yeah,
like
yeah,
hardcore drinkers. But
yeah.
yeah, and I read Andy Ramage's book, which I think I've got over here actually, which is this
Hmm.
area, just to show you how stone's throw away it is. Let's do this, Andy Ramage.
Do you know what? I haven't read that. I listened to books on Audible, so I've
Yeah,
listened to Dave's and countless others, but
yeah.
I'll check
I've
that
read
out.
Dave's is there as well.
Yeah.
And one thing really opened my eyes, where it says, once you want to do something,
Hmm.
you no longer require any willpower to do it because you want to do it.
Yeah,
And I thought,
that
oh,
makes a
now
lot of
that was a
sense.
real eye opener to me. So if someone said to you, right, okay, you've got to stop drinking, but you're fighting against it,
Yeah,
then you're not going to do it. But if
yeah,
it's something you want to do, I actually want to stop drinking. And that was a change. It went from being something I was battling against to something to think, right, I'm going to go with the flow. Look at some of these boys who have already done it.
yeah,
Listen to what they've got to say,
yeah,
and that's how I got swept along with that. And I've been to a couple of Dave's is sober Dave
yeah,
functions
yeah,
together,
yeah. He's a bit,
and I've met some amazing people, and I've still in connection with a lot of them now.
yeah. I mean,
It's I've made some.
Dave's brilliant. I mean, Victoria. Um, I think I was one of the first kind of Instagram accounts that she came on, his
Mm,
partner, and who she came along, and it's. I was listening to someone today. They were just talking about how they found they were sober curious, and they typed in sober into Instagram, and they were just like, where have all these people come from? What's this whole? She
yeah,
was just amazed that there's this whole community, and I was the same. Like when I was a bit like on and off, and I had my old Instagram account, and I was like, and I started putting a few hashtags in, and I was like, oh right, okay. So I started following a few people then, and then when I came out of hospital after I got my last detox, and I just opened up an Instagram account, this one, and
yeah,
just this is all. I didn't add any of my friends or anything like that. I didn't want it to be like that. I thought if they find me and they want to add me, then that's fine. But I want to just be purely about the sober community. And
yeah,
it's unbelievable. There's so many people that can just help. For me, I did go to the meetings and I did all that, but I know a lot of people, it's not for them. And that's the thing, sobriety and recovery is an individual, it's whatever helps you and I always say to people, I went to Smart and I went to AA and I went to NA, but I wasn't like, well, because some people that go to NA or AA, it's only that and they're militant about it. But I'm like,
absolutely,
I'm just going to cherry pick all the bits I like that are working for me. I'm going to take a tool from Smart, and then I'm going to follow that bit from the 12 steps, and I'll do this bit and I'll do that. And I did my steps, and I did all that. But then after about a year, I was like, no, do you know what? I need to start doing my own form of recovery, and
mm,
I'm going to do
yeah,
that. The meetings are there, and that's fine. But now I'm kind of just going to base
yeah.
it on my
I mean,
own.
you've got your
Absolutely.
foundation stones, haven't you? There,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
laid them there, thinking, right, okay, I've got a nice stable base. I've got my sober toolbox. I've got
Exactly.
this. I've got that. So if I mean, that's one of the first things, like Christmases and birthdays, funerals. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
all these different things you experience. If you try and map out,
Hmm.
if I feel like this, what am I going to do?
Hmm.
And I tried to have some sort of plan,
Yeah.
and it worked really well. Because
Yeah.
I said to my wife at Christmas, we got a family around, and it was my first sober Christmas. I said, listen, no problem. You can. I don't want people not to bring wine, but
Hmm.
if I say I'm going for a walk, it's just because I just need a little bit of fresh air and
Yeah.
just distance myself, just a reset button,
Hmm.
then come back in. And I did that. I said, look, just go for a quick walk, get a bit of fresh air. And they were watching TV and I'm chatting anyway. I didn't even notice I'd gone. And I was
Yeah.
back in no time. And that was all I needed, just to divorce myself from it,
Yeah. Yeah.
just for a second.
And it works. And I think for me, I've tried to work out what was kind of the main reason behind my drinking. A lot of it was escapism, but I think a lot of my drinking, and I think this is like a catch 22, like vicious circle. I think alcohol, people use it because they've got anxiety, and the more
Yeah.
and more I see about people that say, oh, what do you mean you're going out and you're not drinking? But the thing is, if they're already feeling anxious about going out, so they think they'll have a drink, and it's always that, like, the ditch courage, or if you're going on
Yeah.
a date or you're going out with your friends and you think you're funny, like, they drink. But then the problem with alcohol is it increases anxiety. This is what people
Yeah.
aren't really
That's
kind
right.
of getting to grips with. That the more, if you're doing something to mask the anxiety, the next day you're going to be tenfold anxious, and then the more that you use that as a crutch to kind of combat your anxiety, you're not going to be able to go out and do things normally, like, ever again, without the alcohol. Whether it be
That's
going
right.
to a meal or going to even the cinema now. Cinema is a big thing for, they've all got bars in there, and it's
Yeah. Well, it's just
crazy.
another way of
Yeah, yeah.
revenue, isn't it? But I
So
mean,
what are your thoughts? Sorry, go on in.
no, I was just saying with my reasons for drinking was confidence.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
that's
that was
it. It's
it. It's
anxiety,
just one word.
confidence. Yeah,
It's just one word. If it wasn't just talking to girls, or it was just having those social skills
yeah,
to be able to just be what I thought was normal
yeah,
in a, I used to play for the darts team and stuff like that.
yeah,
And when I stopped drinking, I mean, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it wasn't like hell, but it wasn't much fun. I've got to be honest.
yeah. It's tough.
But after that, you soon get used to the fact that you've given this up. And after that, mate, it was just motorway.
Yeah.
Of course, then I started karate as well about
Well, this is. I was going to ask you
18 months
about
ago,
that. Yeah.
and
So that is a new thing completely, the karate. Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
what
that's
belt is it?
boosted my confidence. I'm a green belt now,
Nice. So what is it? Is
so
it white, red?
it's white. I've got one on the wall actually. Was it white, orange, red, yellow, then green?
Well done,
So
mate.
I'm
How long's
six.
that you've been doing it?
About last September I started, so
Jesus,
it's
mate.
about 18 months, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
should
Well
be
done.
being graded soon again. So that's pretty cool.
Katas, isn't it? Is it
Yeah,
katas?
yeah, or katas. Yeah,
I
learning
did,
katas.
I did a bit of karate and judo when I was in my youth. I was going to ask about hobbies in recovery. I mean, obviously, I've
Hmm.
I've rediscovered my love of photography and
Yeah,
things
so
like
you.
that. So, what are your thoughts on alcohol in general? I mean, do you think that
uh,
alcohol still has a place in our society?
No, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
But I've got to be very careful because when I say something like, "Oh, look at he's had about 8 glasses of wine, that bloke over there tonight," then my wife will
yeah,
say, "Oh, it's right for you though, wasn't it? 2 or 3 years ago." Don't
yeah.
judge people.
I know.
Everybody's got their own journey. So, I mean, I think this might be a bit controversial, but I think alcohol is the solution. It's not the problem to
Mhm.
I'm on about to be an alcoholic. The problem's the anxiety. It's the solution is getting drunk to get over that anxiety feeling. If you can cope with the anxiety, sort the problem out,
Yeah,
alcohol will just disappear. And
absolutely.
then gradually, as people are now more open than ever about their emotions,
Hmm.
men talk to men now, don't they? People talk to each other, and if you've got a problem, you can. I mean, I meet up with a friend of mine once a month, and it's
Hmm.
just for a chat. We sit
Yeah,
there, and we both of us don't drink. I mean, he does drink. He's not. hasn't got a problem. He does drink alcohol, but he
Hmm.
doesn't drink when that night.
Yeah.
And we just sit there and we just talk about how things are, pretty
Yeah.
much like tonight.
Well, this is
It's just
it. Do you know what I
it's
mean?
just
And
a chat. And
it's just a
because
chat.
that you don't have that feeling of, because I've seen loads of people where I live where they're all farmers and all people who work on their own,
Yeah.
and they're whiskey boys.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They get
But
home.
it's this culture that we have, and the farmers have been doing that. We were doing it from a young age, and so it's almost like we don't know how to socialize without it because it's so indoctrined into us. You
Yes,
mentioned about willpower. Now, I think some of the strongest people with strongest willpower can do it, and I'm sure you've got great willpower. But the thing that we forget is it's an addictive drug. Do you know
that's
what I
right.
mean? It's not like we're
Mm,
trying to give up well, chocolate or sugar, I know that can be addictive as well, but it's not like
yeah,
we're trying to, do something and we're being lazy and we're being inactive. But if you're trying to give up alcohol and it's got its clutches into you, willpower is really not going to work. It's because
no.
it's an addictive substance here.
I mean, you could be the best footballer in the world. You could go and
Yeah.
play football with your mates, but if you decided to stop, you wouldn't have this calling to go and do it. You wouldn't have this voice in your head that says, "Come on, mate, you could have one more game."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
And
the same, and I can't describe unless you've been there. It's very difficult to actually tell somebody what it feels like. I mean, the
yeah.
classic thing I say now is, "Give me your phone, then." They say, "What do you mean?" I say, "Give me your phone." I said, "Why?" "I'll put it in my drawer in the office, and I'll give you it back tomorrow morning."
Yeah.
They go, "Oh no, I couldn't do that." I said, "That's an addiction.
That's it.
Now you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
If you can't do that." I
Yeah.
understand like emergency calls and all this, but I'm just saying scrolling and Facebook and
Oh
Instagram and
no, I
stuff like
know.
that.
And it
You know what I
is.
mean?
And we live in a culture where there's so much of everything at our fingertips. And, obviously alcohol and drugs can be more of a dependency than a mental addiction. And I'm not saying that
Mm,
I'm not trying to take away from gambling or other kind of shopping addictions, but I never had that thing where, I'd walk past a bookies or I need to be down the casino or I might play the odd scratch card here and there, and that is a form of gambling, but I'm not
yeah.
putting more than my I'm not
No.
spending more than my means on it. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, but as I say, we live in this culture where we've got so much stuff around us. And as you said, it's the solution, not the problem. It's the solution to all of these different things. Like, how much more are we understanding about mental health, about ADHD, about, all these different things, like even the perimenopause?
Yeah.
These are all things that people are then masking with alcohol.
Of
And
course. Yes.
it's
That's
kind of
right.
like
I mean,
learn to
I've had
learn
pe-
to live life without it.
I've had friends who are going, "Oh, I've got these things in my head and I just can't cope." And you say, "Well, calm down. We'll have a chat and we talk about it." And where they'll have a bottle of wine to make it all go away.
Yeah.
Now you can talk about it. I mean, what's funny about the gambling? We had how one of our works Christmas dues, if you like,
Hmm.
at a casino, and I'd never been in a casino ever.
Right. Okay.
And I thought it was going to be like something off James Bond. I walked in there and there's people with hoodies and tracksuit bottoms on. I was so
Yeah.
disappointed. I thought it was going to be like people with dicky bows and
Tuxedos.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, and I thought, oh no.
No,
And
it's a bit rotten, isn't it? The casino
yeah, it
these
was. It
days.
was a bit rotten. It was a lovely place. It was a
Yeah,
lovely
but
place. It's
the
just
clientele
just
probably aren't
they could have done with a bit of a dress
dress
code.
code.
But anyway, well, I probably have no customers then. But I stood there and I got given a free bet, a £5 on a card, a free bet. I thought,
Yeah.
well, I'll go and have a go, and I used it, and I lost straight away. God, crap,
Mm.
right? But I didn't put any of my own money in it. What I'm getting around to saying was, I saw a guy there, and when you put your chips on the board,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what
yeah,
it's called,
yeah, yeah.
right? He was putting 100 quid a time on them, and I just thought,
Yeah.
oh my God, right? And I was there, I was watching him, and he won. The thing is, though, the odds are so high
Mhm.
that if he won, he'd probably get 2.5 grand
Yeah.
back
But
from
in
100
his
quid.
head, he's thinking that he's worked the system, and maybe he can afford to put those £100
But I
bets
just
down.
thought that's crazy.
But
But
he's
it's funny about
probably
drinking.
Yeah, he's probably on his arse and he's trying
Yeah.
to win this back, but also it's this dopamine serotonin hit that he's getting from doing that. If he had the money to be able to spend that, and well, why would he be doing it? Do you know what I mean? Because he wouldn't get the
Well, I
burn.
just thought it just seemed a bit of a sad state of affairs. I mean,
Yeah,
because when I go to go out and have a drink, don't get me wrong, I still have a good time now when I don't drink. But I've had some great times when I was drinking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right, with laughs but I mean, I still enjoy them without the alcohol now, so I'm not
yeah.
craving for that life. But he didn't to me look like he was having any much fun at all.
No, he's
Do you know what I
probably
mean?
got his remortgaged his house and all that kind of, and he's like, right, this is the last one I'm doing today, and then it's £100 there, £100 there, and then it's like, you've lost, and then that's taken away from him, and he's like,
Yeah,
what am I going to tell the wife? What am I going to tell the kids? And it's
yeah.
like, but then he's back in tomorrow because he's went and sold his car, and do you know what I mean? I know I'm just making
Yeah.
a sweeping generalization, but
No, I understand though.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
I understand what you mean. It was just a real eye opener because, like you,
yeah,
even though I've spent more than my fair share on alcohol, Christ, I've
yeah.
never been attracted to gambling at all.
No.
So it's not just, oh, you've got an addictive nature. Yeah, I have, but it's not for everything.
I had a friend who, and we knew each other from Aberdeen, and I think he came down to visit me in Cambridge, and I knew he used to go on the fruit machines all the time, and I
Yeah,
remember this,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like, "Oh." And he's come down to visit me, right? And we go round to my local, and we were both big drinkers, you know. In fact, he used to drink whiskey. No, I used to drink Jack Daniels, and he used to drink vodka, and we worked out that we were both going out and ended up like getting into arguments with each other and getting aggressive with each other. So we
Mm,
switched drinks and then we were fine. So I've never really touched whiskey since then, you know, because it did
no.
make me quite aggressive. Anyway, so we're
Yeah,
down in my local, down in Cambridge, and I went up and got some pints, and then we've gone and sat down, and we're going to catch up, and then like within a minute or two, he's up and he's over to the fruit machine, and he literally spent pretty much the entire night over there. Like
yeah,
he would come back for a bit and then he would go back over. He'd be watching people, but that was his night. That was like we were catching up, but he was watching. He had one eye on the
yeah.
bandit, and it was like, wow, man, like I haven't seen you in like 3 years or something. And but so he, you know, yeah, I'm not sure what his bandit problem is like now, but you know, it was definitely. But I couldn't get it. I
I
was
mean,
just like, yeah, it's just a toy, isn't it? You know.
years ago when you used to pay years ago, you pay cash for a beer, and
Yeah,
it was £3.50 a pint, say at
yeah,
the time.
yeah.
So you get £1.50 change from a fiver, or £6.50 for a
Yeah,
tenner.
yeah,
And someone would go, "Do you want to go a pound each in a free machine?" So you go £2, and whatever you get, you split. So
yeah,
you'd end up, and that's that. If we didn't win, that was it.
yeah,
Or we'd have a go on a quiz game,
yeah. Because it was like take
something
or
like that.
leave it, and you'd be like, yeah,
Yeah, we just put
yeah.
a
Those
pound
little
each in.
ones where it was like, who wants to be a millionaire or whatever.
Yeah,
But it
that's
was
right.
actual general knowledge, and you'd
Yeah,
think, oh yeah, I'm quite good at that, and then you'd maybe win a fiver back, and then you would put it back in,
yeah,
or you'd buy a beer, and then that was it. But you weren't spending all
yeah. That's
night.
right.
But
That's
you
right. Yeah,
some people that would. Now what I was thinking today, I was thinking, and I think Mickey Flanagan, is it? Mickey Flanagan, the comedian. I think he's spoken about
yeah,
this before, and he said, you know, like if guys were to turn up to like, you know, a house party or whatever, or you know, like a meal with 4 pack of Tennent's Super or like Old Rosie, you know, and even those are
yes,
like 9 or 10%, everyone would be like, "What the hell are you bringing that beer for?" But it's okay for ladies to turn up with like a 12 or 13% bottle of prosecco for themselves. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like there is that thing. Their alcohol content is much higher than what in the stereotypical men drink beer and women drink wine.
mm,
I know that it's completely, changed and all that. But like, if you think about it, it's meant to be sophisticated by bringing this bottle of Prosecco around, and we're just going to drink Prosecco, but it's 12 or 13%.
yeah.
It's
I
not
mean,
like a soft
how
drink.
many times have you turned the bottle of wine around when you used to drink wine to make sure it's a high enough volume to be
Oh,
worth buying? I used to do it all the
absolutely.
time. I turn it around and go,
What?
"What? 11%? That's no
Yeah.
good."
That's
I'd
not a good
rummage
one.
around a bit and find one for about 13 if I could.
Yeah.
And
Somebody told me that red wine, because of its viscosity, it got you more drunk than white wine. So red wine was my tipple.
yeah,
If I was drinking wine, it'd always be red. But also, I think the red wine had that more sophistication. It was like,
that's
oh,
right.
white wine. No, I drink red wine here, and
Yes.
there was nothing sophisticated about
Yeah.
me. It
It's
was
three for
purely
tenner
to
from
get
Asda,
sick. Yeah,
you know. And yeah, I mean, funny enough, in the karate, we would go out for a drink and they know I don't drink.
yeah,
They have, even though we've known each other for 18 months, you go there, we train, fight each other, then go home. We haven't had that social thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we still haven't really spoken about it at karate. I just said I don't drink, and they said, "Oh, right, okay." And I said, "Well, I used to drink,
Yeah.
but
You're
I
just
I
giving
said,
them.
yeah, I said I went pro at an early age and had to retire, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's about all I've really said about it. So
Yeah.
it's quite cool.
And that is a good one. I mean, another one I've heard is like, no, I don't drink it. It brings me in handcuffs. I'm allergic to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, Billy Connolly was great, wasn't he? Billy Connolly said he gave it drinking. He said because he thought he ought to do it while it was still his idea,
yeah, the
which is
doctors hadn't
perfect.
told him to do it, and
Yeah.
that's a
And he
great
said his
thing.
wife must have thought a pint was 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide because he say, I'm just going to pop out for a pint. Must think it was this big, because it can be absolutely trolleyed. He's
Yeah,
only gone
or
out for a
like
pint.
days later. But yeah, and it's interesting the amount of celebrities that you now hear about that are kind of coming out of the woodwork and saying, yeah, I'm
Mm.
sober or I don't drink, and it's not necessarily that they were in the deepest, darkest pits like Robert Downey Jr. or
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know,
he's a good role
but
model now, isn't he, for kids?
yeah,
He
but
does
that's
loads
the
of the
thing.
Iron Man stuff.
Yeah,
Who else is there? Brad Pitt doesn't drink.
yeah.
Um,
The guy
Bradley
from
Cooper.
the guy from The Hangover, what's his name? Bradley
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, yeah. And then to
Yeah,
to make
from
all three of those Hangover films, and I didn't know he
yeah.
was. Well, I'm not saying that they were drinking through the film, but they were funny films and I enjoyed them.
Well,
And
he was in The Star Is Born, wasn't he?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which
cool.
is where he's an alcoholic.
Yeah, well, he directed that, didn't he?
I
Yeah,
don't know, did he?
yeah,
But I
no,
mean, that was great. I watched that and
a great
I
film.
found it really sort of loads of things about it. I
Yeah.
just hammered home, which
There's
is
so many good films out there. Have you seen? I think it's called A Beautiful Boy with Timothy Chalamet, and it's
don't
based
think
on
I
a
have no.
true story. There's the book by the dad, which the film's based on, and then there's a book by the son. And I think he was into meth, but it was alcohol and all that. And it's
Mm.
just, it's a beautiful film. It's what's his name from The Office, the American Office? Steve Carell, is it?
Yeah, Steve Carell, yeah.
Yeah, so he's in it. He plays the dad. It's an amazing film. There's 28 Days with Sandra Bullock, which is a great one about her going into
Mm.
rehab. So many good recovery films out there
Well,
as
it's
well.
good because you've got these people now who are A-list celebrities
Yeah,
who say, look, it's actually quite cool being sober. There's nothing wrong with saying to people, I don't drink and I'm fine with you drinking. It's
yeah,
not a problem, but it's just something I just don't do. When you think back to when you used to watch the darts, when the Eric Bristow and all
yeah,
that lot used to play, Jockey Wilson, they'd do pints, weren't they? Pints
yeah.
all over
Was
the
the
little
same with the
table.
snooker as well. They were
Yeah,
smoking at the side, and then they put their pint down, put their fag in the ashtray, and then get up and then knock the
yeah.
knock the black ball in.
You get Alex Higgins, he'd be
Yeah, yeah, dancing around the
scat.
table.
Yeah,
But it was a different time, and that's the thing. As we grew up, the world was completely normalizing and almost glamorizing the
yeah,
alcohol world,
absolutely.
and the alcohol companies are completely cashing in on that now. And I think it is time for a change because, you know, way back when people thought that smoking was a sophisticated thing, and look at it now. I don't remember the last time I was walking down the street and I could smell a cigarette because I used to
No.
smoke. I was a big
Mm,
smoker. And then that's kind of almost outlawed now. I know you can still
yeah.
get them, but it's
Well, you
not a
looked at
thing.
like you've got the plague, haven't you now? If you blow
Yeah,
smoke on
yeah,
somebody or
yeah.
vape
And I
near
know,
someone,
like even outside buildings, you're not allowed to smoke anymore. You've got to go into
no,
designated places and all the rest
that's
of
right.
it. And it's just so I think that alcohol. I think the younger people coming up are more health conscious. Everyone's getting health conscious, and that's what surprises me that people are still drinking because they're
Mm,
going, oh, I went to gym and I ate this low carb meal and I've got this fruit, my five a day and all that, and
mm,
then I'm going to have a bottle of wine, and it's like, why are you
yeah.
doing that?
Why are you doing that?
That
I mean, I
what
talk
are you
to my
getting from
kids
that?
quite openly about alcohol
Yeah,
because they're all older now. They're in
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
20s. They're in their 20s, and none of my children drink. And they're
Mhm.
all, apart from my son who's 14,
Yeah,
and he doesn't drink. I'm saying they're all over the age of drink limit. My daughter's nearly 18, so she's not far off. The others are older. And they said, oh, it's just something we're just not interested in. And I was trying to analyze this thing. Well, what's changed? What's the difference between why are they not bothered? And brought it down to the fact is that it's not a social thing anymore
No.
because they talk to their friends like we're chatting online. Now
Mhm.
we would probably have to have a chat in a pub.
Yeah, so are they not doing face to face, like actual
They
physical
don't. No, not really,
IRL?
because
Is it? Like,
they've got their own families
hmm.
and they talk to their friends online. They do meet up and
Yeah,
they do go out occasionally and have a meal and a drink, but it's
yeah,
not like I'll see you down the pub at 7 o'clock
yeah,
tonight then,
yeah.
which
Because
is why
that
all
was
the
that
pub
was our
gangs have all gone.
social. That was our
Yeah,
social outlet, wasn't it? And it
that's
wasn't
right.
like
Yeah,
it was even then. I mean, I had mobile phones, I suppose, in my early 20, no, well, I suppose I was 18, 19. But before that, when I was going out, we'd phone each other on the landlines and we would say, right, we're getting on this bus or we're meeting at, George Square. And then we're going, you had to be there because otherwise it was like, well,
yeah.
I don't know how to get in touch with you now. Yeah.
I
And I
mean, we'd
also
arrange
think,
things on the phone. Yeah,
well, yeah, exactly. And I think that kids now, um, I think they're too worried about getting completely shit-faced and doing something stupid and someone recording it, and then
yeah,
it's there
exactly.
for forever,
That's right.
Uh,
I mean, when we used to phone his mate, we laughed, Jimmy, because you phoned up your mate and he's on your mum and dad's telephone, yeah, which is like so out of bounds. It's unbelievable. You
yeah.
go, right, I'll see you at the park. Put the phone down really quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you remember that because
Yeah.
you knew your mum and dad or would go mental if you got the
Oh,
itemised
absolutely.
bill crossing them all off. Who's that?
Oh, so
Who's this
who
number?
is this? Who is this? Or it's like we'd phone up and you go, "Hi, Mrs. Marks. Is Ian there, please?" And then if you got one of the parents wanted to chat, "Oh, hi, James," because I was James in those days. "Hi,
Yeah,
James. How are you?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm fine." And it's like, "Yeah, all right, mate. Don't get your mum. You answer the phone next time. Why have you not answered the phone
yeah,
first?" Told you I was going to
yeah,
call it this time. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Now I've had to speak to
Uh,
your mum for half an hour.
yeah,
And
how we getting on? Oh
yeah,
dear.
she's like, "What
Yeah,
are you
those are the
doing
days.
tonight?" And be like, "Oh, we're just going to go down to the park, Mrs. Marks." Yeah, I've got like a bottle of Mary Down and some Mad Dog 2020, and we're going to drink
Yeah,
that.
that's it. But the Thunderbird. Let's get that
Yeah,
open.
absolutely. Hey,
No.
so thanks very much for your time, Ian. Is there any kind of final thoughts, or what's kind of the next stages for you? Have you got anything to say to the
I've got to be
listeners?
honest. My final thought is, like I said earlier on, is you do not have to hit rock bottom
Yeah,
to change your relationship with alcohol. It's not being preachy. You don't have to hit rock bottom. If alcohol's affecting you in a negative way, you might be a little bit arsy at home, or you think, oh Christ, I might be over the limit driving to work the next morning. Because let's be honest, if you have a drink at 11 o'clock at night, and you're jumping in the car at 7:30
yeah,
in the morning, there's a probably chance that you're over the limit. To be fair, depending what you're drinking. And I thought I wouldn't be able to function without alcohol being my crutch, being this thing I needed.
mhm,
And believe me, with very quickly, I realised it was the thing that was holding me back. So, you know, don't despair. There are lots of people out there. I mean, I know yourself, Jimmy. I'm sure if anybody's struggling with alcohol or anything, they want any advice, the inboxes are always open.
yeah,
Follow some of the big hitters as well because they interview some big people. We're all little people like me on Instagram
yeah, and me,
where I might chat every now and then, but you follow the bigger people as well because you might get sober Dave talking to Professor
David Nutt.
well,
Yeah,
your David Nutt, and he's talking to everybody else, all the authors of all the books, and he does a question and answer as well. So it's good. So
yeah.
just don't despair. Just start your journey. Just start.
And can I ask you one more thing, Ian?
Yeah.
Have you ever regretted getting sober?
No, not for a second. That's the
Mhm.
honest truth. I mean, I've had moments where I thought to myself on the New Year's Eve when you could hear all the fireworks going and everyone's leaping around in the pubs and stuff, and
Yeah.
you think, am I a boring bastard?
Ah,
But the answer is no,
no,
is the answer.
no.
Because I said this to my wife, and I know I'm dragging out the question, but I said, do you
No.
think I'm boring? Do you think I'm boring now I don't drink? She said, how interesting do you think it was watching the end of a film on my own most evenings?
Yeah,
If you want to see boring, that's boring.
yeah. Or having you repeat yourself a
Yeah,
million times. Yeah, and that's the
yeah,
thing. It's just
that's
constantly.
now I go on holiday. We spend the day on the beach fossil hunting in Lyme Regis,
Yeah,
and I don't cut it in half by going to the pub.
yeah. yeah,
I don't do that anymore. I take some drinks down, some non-alcoholic drinks down to the beach, and we spend the whole day there. We
yeah.
have a great time.
And you're not hanging in the morning because I mean,
No,
I got up for work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, this morning I woke up without even my alarm at 5:30 because I'd gone to bed earlier last
yeah,
night, and I love it. Then I'm up, and that's
yeah,
that's my day started. And it's okay. It's dark at the moment, but when it gets to spring and summer, best part
yeah.
of the day, and I love
That's
it.
right. Yeah, I'm an early bird. And
Yeah.
as well, when we go away anywhere, if you look around the area, instead of just staying to the place. Oh, I went to festival, went to Latitude Festival last year,
Oh, it's an amazing
and
festival,
it,
isn't
it
it?
it was great. It really was great. And there were all the usual people there. It was a good festival.
Yeah.
But I stayed in a farmhouse,
Oh,
25-minute drive away, because I'm not camping in a field in a puddle so I can get pissed. I just thought no, so I just booked an Airbnb, a lovely
yeah.
farmhouse. It was a little annex on the side, all white sheets and lovely view across the meadows. And I
Yeah.
just, after the festival, jumped in the car, 20 minutes down the road, and I'm staying in a
Yeah.
proper bed. So,
I bet you felt like Michael Eavis, didn't you? Yeah. I'll just swan in my wellies but that's the
yeah,
thing, you're not being kept up all night by people running about. And I mean, I have to admit, when I went to Latitude, I was there with my university because we were making films, and I was a bit of a nightmare because I was, drinking and drinking and drinking. But
yeah,
everyone was, and we were all up till God knows what hours. And then we had to get up the next day and do filming, and I was hanging. But then by the time we'd be like, right, I'm gonna crack open one of these, and it'll be
yeah.
it'll be fine.
I mean, I've had
Yeah.
some great festival times, drinking as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's
yeah, of
just not.
course,
It's
of
just
course.
nice not to wake up, especially if you're going in the summer. You wake up at daylight 4 in the morning, so you wake up
Yeah,
and it's like 35 degrees in the tent, and you think I'm dehydrated anyway. And this was just
yeah,
great. Got up, had breakfast in the garden, and
yeah. Oh, it sounds like heaven. I
well, it's
mean,
just because I
do you know
don't
what?
because I don't drink. It was about 55 quid, I think it was for the room for the
Yeah,
night. But
yeah. And you'd have been that on booze easy. Yeah,
yeah,
for
so
the
that's what we do now. We go to all sorts of places, and I can drive because when you can have a drink,
yeah.
if she wants a drink, if she doesn't, she doesn't. But I haven't got to worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll just drive there, so I'd
And
never
that's
regret it.
also the freedom that we have of being able to drive. I was speaking to a friend, I think it was about 2 years ago, and like I do his garden as well, and I was speaking to him, and he told me that he had to rush his wife into hospital, and I think it was like 1:30 in the morning or something, but it was always a bit. It was a suspected appendicitis, but they'd all been
Mm,
drinking the night before. They'd had
yeah,
friends around. They weren't steaming, but the niece was, I think she was 17. She had a provisional, so she drove. Obviously, what they were doing was
yeah,
borderline legal. It wasn't legal, but because he was over the limit, but they had to get to hospital. And I just said to him, "Listen, man, if you're ever in a situation like that again, God forbid you're not, but you can call me." And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's a point." I was like, "Yeah, because I won't be over the limit ever." So,
no,
even if it's 1:30 in the morning and you're in a sticky situation, you can call me because I can drive. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's
that's right.
it's such a good freedom of feeling to
It
be able
is, and
to
it's good now
say that.
when you've got kids. You think your kid stays over or having a sleepover tonight, Dad? I'm going over to my mate's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you check it all out to make sure they actually really are doing that, and
Yeah.
then and it is kosher.
Yeah.
3 in the morning, he phones me up and says, "I've had enough. I want to come home. Something's
Yeah.
happened. We've all fell out, and I've got 3 bottles of wine on board.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'll be there 10 minutes, mate.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It gives you a sense of, that you're able to go and do that. I remember an ex, she had a little boy, this was years ago, and I'd go round hers on a Friday night and he'd be off to bed and I'd be kind of, knocking back the wine as I did. And I think she'd like maybe have like half a glass or something. And I'd be like noticing, I'd be like, so why are you not having a good old drink with me? And she's like, well, what happens if the wee man needs to go to hospital or anything like that? And it just hit me and I was like, oh yeah, of course. I hadn't thought
Yeah,
of that. It didn't stop
yeah.
me drinking, obviously, but
No, no.
it
I've
was
had
like,
somebody. My wife.
yeah,
I was drinking some wine, ploughing my way through this bottle of wine, and she looked at me and said, "You do realise you've got your son upstairs in bed? What are you going to do if he needs a hospital or something?" I thought, shit, I hadn't even thought about that.
yeah. That's the thing we don't think because this one thing it just supersedes everything in the life when it's got to the point that we were at, and it's like nothing else matters. I'm just happy doing this, and everything else will take care of itself, which
Mm,
it doesn't. when I was doing
No,
that, everything else was crumbling, you know,
that's right. Yeah,
absolutely crumbling.
it's like a house of cards. Everything's just starting to
Yeah,
fall.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's cool.
yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Ian. It's been an absolute
That's all right.
pleasure speaking to you again, mate.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you,
put
mate. It's
all.
been lovely to talk to you as well. It's been a long
Yeah,
time.
thank you. I will. This will go now. Might be next week, might be the week after, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's
I'm
cool.
trying to
Yeah,
put them out weekly, but I'm getting a bit like kind of like, oh, I've got one ready. I'll put it out Friday.
I know what you mean.
I'm gonna try and just do it because then I'll just run out of episodes. You know what I mean? At least this way, because I've had a few friends and they're saying I can't keep up with them. I don't have all the time in the world to listen to your podcast, so I'm going to try and put them out weekly after. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, next week.
yeah. I know when
I'll
I
put
listen
all your.
to, sorry.
I was no, you carry on, carry on.
No, I just say I know when I've listened to other people's weekly's pretty cool. I remember getting in the car when Dave started doing his
Yeah,
one for the road. I thought, it's Thursday or whatever day it was,
yeah,
and I'd set my phone up, plug my ear pods in so I could listen to it on the way to work,
yeah.
driving
That's
to
it.
work.
And I don't. I want people to be like, oh, it's Monday morning, right? We've got Jimmy's to listen to, and then whoever else on a Tuesday, and then Wednesday. And if I start throwing them in on a Friday or a Thursday, and it's like, what? And I want
Yeah,
to be keep it regular and keep it going so it's got longevity. But I'll
mm,
put all your details in the show notes, mate. If there's
lovely, mate.
anything else that you want me to add in there,
No,
I'll
no,
put
not at all.
I'll try and put in a link to those two films that we spoke about as well.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a good
sure
idea
they'll-
actually, because it's good for people to
yeah.
watch stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
good stuff.
absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Well,
Right.
thanks very much for your time, Ian.
Okay,
It's
mate.
been a
Take
real
care.
pleasure, and I will see you soon, buddy. Cheers,
See
mate.
you soon. Take care.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
That was Ian. Sober retake. Yeah, great conversation. So many things reminiscent of my past, falling out with partners, talking about like, yeah, I'm just going to go out for, a couple of drinks with someone and then not showing up for a couple of days later. Scary stuff. And, as I said before, Ian and myself and countless others, we didn't set out on our life's plan of a map to become problem drinkers. It just happened through circumstance. So it's something to kind of think about if you are sober curious, or those weekends are the bad times and the hangovers are outweighing the good times. You must start thinking to yourself, what am I actually getting out of this? Where's the fun time of this coming from? And maybe it's time to just knock on the head. It's not, it shouldn't be if it's not an issue, then it shouldn't be difficult to knock on the head and go for a month or 3 months or 6 months. But if it is difficult to do it, then nip it in the bud now. Ian was what 47-ish when he got sober. I was 40, and we've still got a long, hopefully, life ahead of us through sobriety. And we take, as Ian was saying, he has so much more enjoyment out of life now. He's in a happy relationship. He can be the dad that he always wanted to be, and he's he can be silly on the beach with his kids, with the alcohol free, and not not thinking, right, what am I going to do tonight, or hungover. So yeah, it's just again, it's food for thought. I'm going to keep banging the drum because I think alcohol is a problem in this society, and you just need to take a look at, Friday, Saturday nights on the town, people falling out of the bars. And we've normalised that. We've made that think that, oh, yeah, that's just a Friday, Saturday night. That's what it shouldn't be, though. That shouldn't be what society has come to. It needs to be kind of looked at. And the people that do have an issue are just kind of, oh, well, it's your own fault. You obviously can't handle your drink, and we'll put you to the back of the queue. Yeah, so I'm just, trying to do these podcasts to raise awareness and, let people know that they're not alone, even if it is can't put that bottle of Prosecco down on a Friday night. And if that's all you're drinking, but it's a problem, then do something about it. You know, we're past dry January now, and I want to know how many people really struggled to do that. And as soon as it got to February, we're back on it. Because if that is you, then you need to do something about it. Anyway, thanks for listening today. Thank you again to Ian. I'm going to put the films that we spoke about in the show notes. Ian's at the Sober Retake on Instagram. And so just follow on Spotify, Apple, Amazon. I think there's a few people follow me on there. Whatever platform you use. Audible's even I'm on Audible, so people listen on there. So follow, rate, review, put a little comment on. I've had a few of those now, which I absolutely love, and it helps other people see what they're going to listen to and whether it's the podcast for them, which hopefully it is. And share about. So thanks, guys. Have a great week, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.